Hey everybody, welcome back to the Hobby Lodge. I thought I would do a video today after our visit to RMC's The Cave and the Arcade Archive. It was a great trip yesterday, and I always like to try and do these videos straight after we've been to places because it's fresh in your mind and you can talk about it as much as you possibly can. So if you've not seen these before, RMC The Cave is run by Neil after his channel. This channel, I'll put a link in below. It covers everything that's to do with computing of the age, the retro age that we're all into. And he's built this museum which is just a showcase of everything there. And Alex, who has the Arcade Archive, which is just an arcade that you would imagine to see in that sort of late 80s mid 90s type of period, with a plethora of machines to play. So yeah, but based in Stroud, so kind of the West Country, if you can get down that way. Maybe some people wouldn't call it that, but for me it's West Country. As a London lad, I had to go down the M4, and therefore that's definitely out to the west. But yeah, about a 2.5 hour drive for me, so about a 5 hour round trip. So it's a lot to ask in a day. I probably would recommend, if you have got to make a long journey, stay down that way. It's a lovely area, lovely countrysides, lovely environment, loads of great places to stay. And of course, there are many other things you could go and make a weekend of, or you could just do a full weekend at the cave and the arcade. I could have definitely done a day in one and a day in the other. But what most people recommend, and what they recommend, is that you do a session in the morning, maybe at the cave, and then a session in the afternoon at the arcade, or whichever way round you wish to do it. And that's pretty much how it's priced as well. So you get a small discount if you book one in the morning and one in the afternoon. So I would highly recommend you do it. I'll stick links below. If you want to go and check it out, go and check it out. But yeah, what I'll do also now is I'll start playing some video and some photos, so you're not just looking at this mug, which is currently fighting off a man flu. So hopefully I sound okay. I might sound a bit nasally. I've got the doors open as well. It's super hot, so sorry if you get some outside noise, maybe some birds chirping and such. But anyway, yeah, I'll talk about my experiences there, and then I'll play some footage, and hopefully you'll see some cool stuff. But the cave, let's start off there. So when you get there, it is an amazing old building. Like, you would look at it and you would not think that this contains these two things. It's like, I think it's an old wool mill or something, but it's been converted obviously to house businesses, of which these are two of them that are in there, and I believe there's plans for more to join. So you go up these stairs into the cave, and when you walk in, it is just nostalgia overload of old computers, old consoles. There is just a bit of everything. There's refreshments there if you want to get them. There is just, it's really hard to talk about it because there's so much to talk about. That's the problem. So where do you start? So I guess I will imagine walking in, and I'll talk about what I see when you first walk in. One of the first things that jumps out at me when I walked in was just a wide open space. So it's not sort of all little rooms. It's a big open area, lots of seating available, lots of systems available, and they have a controlled number of people in there. So at no point did I feel like I couldn't play with something or interact with something. It wasn't so busy that you're standing in a queue to jump on a system or whatever it is. So that was immediately a really nice, clean, I will say that, very clean environment, very well organized. Just a really happy place to be. It just had a great vibe about it, and the people that are there, of course Neil was there, the guy behind it all, and his team, which I believe is mostly volunteers, and they're all super knowledgeable, all super proud to be there and working there. So yeah, really great atmosphere. To the left now, hopefully, I don't know if this will sort of line up with the video, but if it doesn't, you will see it. To the left, as soon as you walk in, was a sort of wooden shelving area that contained all of, more than I could possibly imagine, like the Tomy LCD games. You remember the ones you used to put up to your eyes to look through? They had like the Shark one and the TIE Fighter one, the Grandstands, the Defender games, all the little handheld or tabletop LCD, LED type games, even some of the mechanical ones like a mechanical pinball, a barcode battler. Who doesn't remember a barcode battler? I actually got to play with it again. I'm gonna find one and get one, because I couldn't actually remember how to play it. I remembered powering up your monster using different barcodes from beans and stuff. And what was great was inside the box, not only did it have the original cards that came with the game, but they'd put a bunch of random barcodes in there as well. But like all of those kind of very early, or sort of late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s handheld gaming devices, and they're all playable. Like normally when you see these things on the shelves, you kind of feel a bit afraid to touch them. But Neil's got signs up that says, please do touch, like we want you to play all these things. And if something hasn't got batteries, there's a big bucket of batteries there. You can just unplug things, plug things in, put batteries in, play with them, and then obviously just put them back when you're finished. So you could have spent a good few hours just in this section alone, because there were so many that I hadn't even seen before. There were so many. So me and my boys absolutely loved playing those. We went through a whole bunch of them, and they're still great. They're still really playable and still really work. So yeah, I can see me getting a couple of those in here in the future, just because they were such good fun. And from this area, you made your way around to the left, and this was a really cool piece. So there was a shop, like an actual replica of a video game shop of the time. Now, unfortunately, you can't buy anything in there, because my goodness, I would have needed a trolley to walk out of that place with. But it is just a replica. It has so many great games in there, and they've been, I think most of them have been sort of resealed in plastic, so they look like they would have done on the shop shelves. There's the hanging things with the little tabs on, so the games are hanging up on the wall. It looks fantastic. It really sort of just gives you that feel of walking into an old WH Smith's, they've changed obviously now, or the Boots, or even your local corner shop, or whatever it might have been where you bought your games from. It has that real sort of feel to it. It's really fun. Loads of boxed Amiga games, PC, Commodore, Spectrum, Amstrad, and then on the other side was more like console, so your Master System, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Mega Drive, everything. And one of the really cool things is there was a kind of like a wall display with a screen and a controller, and a barcode scanner, the old traditional handheld barcode scanners. And you could take a game from the shelf. If it had a red sticker on it, a little red like circle, you could scan the barcode on the back, and the game would load on the screen. So obviously behind the scenes there's some Raspberry Pi emulator or something that's picking up the barcode being read and then loading that game. Some clever little bit of scripting or something happening there to load up the game that it's just found the barcode for. So that's really cool. I think that's a really innovative idea to have in the shop, and it means that people can go in, pick a game off the shelf, scan, play it for a little bit. A really cool environment. I'm just gutted that I couldn't buy anything in there, because there were some cracking games in there that I'd have definitely picked up, especially some of those big boxed Amiga and PC games. But yeah, really cool little area again, for you to spend a whole bunch of time in. You come out of there, you go left again. Actually, no, when you come out of there, there's a whole area dedicated to magazines. Every collectible magazine you can think of, your Amiga format, your Amiga shopper, your computer video games, just so many of the different Edge and so many other nostalgic video game magazines from back in the day. All there, all sleeved. You can pick them up, you can thumb through them, you can just, like, some of the art covers just hit you in the face like a nostalgia truck that you remember. So yeah, great little area. And then you're into where Neil actually has the RMC Caves studio area. So in there, again, arcade machine in there, a couple of other PC setups, but mostly this is where you get to see where Neil does his videos from. So it's a little bit cordoned off, because obviously he's got his cameras around there and bits around there, but you get to see where the magic happens for his channel, where he has his setup and does his videos done. So that was a nice little thing to see. And also the I think it was Codemasters. I can't remember which one it was now. It might have been Codemasters. There's a wall of tapes that they've been made into a piece of artwork, which I think is really, really cool. Coming back out of there, through the magazine area again, you're really into the big open area now. So this is where the most of the museum is. So many screens, many systems, pretty much everything you can think of is there to be played with. Go out, have fun. Most of them have some kind of SD card solution in them, so you're not just loading the game or playing the game that's installed on it or in the tape deck or in the disk drive. You've got an SD card solution there, so you can stop and start any game you want and restart them. And there's always people around to help. So maybe if you don't know how to use these systems, or you don't know how to use the SD card solution, you go and see someone. They'll come over, sort you out. And then from the back of that, there is a museum area. So this is more glass cabinet stuff with some of the, I won't say more rarer things, but it certainly had like the Odyssey in there, and some of the really early Amstrad stuff and Sinclair stuff, and some of these rarer or sort of things I haven't seen, some of the Japanese machines and things like that. So really cool. You couldn't play with those things, but often if it was in the glass cabinet, it was probably on the tables behind you anyway, so you could go and play them there. But this was more informational. You can read about where these systems came from and all that sort of jazz. Up the back, you had again some more systems, and loads of what I thought was really cool was boxes of some of these systems. So often it's just nice to see how they came packaged, what the box arts look like and things like that. So really cool. Sorry, I've probably been saying really cool because it was. I don't think I stopped smiling the whole time I was in there. Everything invoked some sort of feeling or emotion, and it was great fun. Even for me, a small little thing at the back of the room where they had kind of the PC set up, they had on the shelf the boxes for the Voodoo graphics cards. Now, if you don't know what a Voodoo graphics card is, that's okay. But for those who do, you know what they look like. So I said to you Voodoo graphics card boxes, you'd probably already picture some kind of, two eyes with some sort of, graphic on them, make crazy makeup or extreme looking set of eyes on a box. These video cards were the pinnacle of graphics cards back in the day. They cost a fortune, but they looked amazing, and the art on the box was just as sort of evocative as owning the cards itself. So yeah, that was there. And again, you can get them down, you can have a look at them. There's no limits on what you can really do. Obviously you're there, you're respectful, you're not going to damage anything, and I think that's the great trust they have of people that go to this sort of thing, is that they're going to be there, they're going to look after the stuff. So in and around there, then you've got like the tuck shop, which also sold bits and pieces, and I'll show you some of the pickups I've got at the end of the video. But you're there as well, and toilets there, drinks available, food, little trinkets to buy, like merch from the channel and things like that, and even some unique stuff. So for instance, when we were there was a guy called Mike Daly, and he is responsible for the development of Lemmings and Grand Theft Auto and those sorts of things, and he was there that day. I don't know why, but I kind of missed the messages about him being there. Otherwise, I'd have taken my copy of Lemmings down with me for him to sign. But he was there, and again, just there hanging out, really. He didn't do a talk or anything. They do have talks there. But on that day, he was just hanging out in the cave and answering questions if you had them, wanting to be involved, wanting to just listen to people and have a bit of a chit chat. So that was really cool. And of course, Neil's there himself. So if you want to talk to Neil about anything he's got going on, he was always very open, and he came around and saw people just to make sure they were having a good time. So yeah, the cave was fantastic fun, and I highly recommend you go if you can. That's your morning session. Once that ends, you can go out and have some lunch. You're in a lovely area. I would recommend that maybe think about taking maybe a picnic or something with you if you can. There is a sandwich cafe just down the road, and I think there is also a fish and chip shop nearby. We went to the sandwich shop. It's quite an expensive sandwich shop, I'll just add that. I think you're talking, well, it was expensive, but it's a very sort of artisan type cafe, so you kind of expect it when you see it. But very nice food, but absolutely. But you may want to consider taking some food with you. There are park benches, and you're sitting by a nice little babbling brook, so you can sit by the park benches right outside the cave and enjoy a nice picnic or something there, or go for a wander. You've got about an hour between when you leave the cave to when you may go to your next session. Of course, if you're going on from the day and then you can obviously go and do whatever you please, but if you're doing the afternoon session in the arcade, you've got that hour lunch to play with. So yeah, we did that. We went to the cafe, got ourselves some nice sandwiches, came back, sat on the benches at that and had a chat with the people that were there, and then at 2 o'clock, sorry, at 2 o'clock we went into the arcade archive. So Alex Such a nice guy. It's the first time I've met him in person. I've spoken to him many times. I mean, I'll come on to all the friends and stuff that I met whilst I was there, but I'm just going to cover the two locations at the moment. But he's such a nice guy, so passionate about what he's done. And that's probably the biggest thing for me. These people that do this stuff, you know, whether they're opening their own, you know, Sega Zombie opening his own store, you know, Neil doing his computer museum, Alex doing his arcade museum, for want of a better word, his own actual arcade. This takes huge amounts of braveness, I guess is the word, and gall to do it, because this isn't easy. You don't do this to get rich, I don't think. So I know he's throwing his entire passion and love into this project, and it shows. The moment you walk into the arcade's door, you can see it in him. The first thing he does is meet and greet everyone, and he does a little bit of a talk. So he talked about, so yeah, when you first walk in, you're not in the arcade. The arcade, there's a door, like a magic sort of arcade door, and you know the arcade's behind there. But in the front area is almost like where his studio is. He does a lot of his videos from this space, and he's got a few select machines that he just does a little bit of a talk about. Not long, I'm talking literally a few minutes. And I love that he takes the pride in sort of talking about how Pong came into existence, how some of the machines that are maybe he's working on and why they're significant to him, the gunfight machine, and things like that. You know, he just takes a moment just to talk you through some of the things that are going on in the arcade archive. And then obviously he then, like Willy Wonka, opens the door and lets you go off and play. There is a whole, I didn't get it at first, but there is a whole high score arcade. And that's, of course, you know, I know this is what Alex loves about the arcade, is that chasing those high scores. These arcades aren't there to be big, long RPG games. They're meant to be jump on, try and beat the high score, and then move on and keep going and keep pushing that high score. So he has a thing that throughout your time in there, if you ever beat a high score on the machine, it's come and tell him that high score, and he'll get it stuck on the big screen in the arcade archive, so that everyone knows you're a top dog. And he has one for obviously the adults and even the under 16. So if you've got small people with you, absolutely take small people with you. They will love it. My kids loved both the cave and the arcade, and they get to, you know, go around and beat the high scores for the under 16s, of which my kids did, I think, like 6 or 7, because they were just looking at all of the games and going, okay, this one's got a highly, or it's got no score set on it at all, or this one's got quite a low high score. So they really enjoyed going around and smashing all of the high scores. And even I got one, you know, Time Pilot. I think I was on like 89,000 or something, which probably in the grand scheme of Time Pilot's not high, but it was a record on the day, so I'm taking it. So yeah, probably today someone's going to beat my score. But yeah, super fun. Just going around the arcade. Really cool feel to it. Like I mean, apart from not being filled with smoke, sweaty people, and all that jazz, and sticky floors. Remember the arcades where your trainer would almost stick to the floor? So if you can imagine the amazing colors, the darkness, the sounds, all of the you know, the lights, all of that stuff that we loved about arcades, without all the grossness, that was the arcade. Alex has put a really good feel in there with the lighting, with the sound, with the arcade layout. It just felt really, really good to have everyone around you getting really stuck into games. And what a choice of games there was! My goodness, there's no way I'm going to name all, because I can't. But I will be showing video of me walking around, so maybe you'll see some great stuff. But I'll talk about the ones that stood out for me, just because either they were new machines or I knew about them. So for one, I'll start off with a really common one that everyone knows, but I never knew that Centipede used a trackball. For me, Centipede, whenever I've seen it in arcades or obviously played it on emulation or whatever it might have been, it's always been with a joystick or a controller of some description. So I'd never seen Centipede with a trackball. Now, I'm sure to some people they're like, well, of course it was a trackball, but I'd never seen it. You know, to me, trackballs were always like, you know, Missile Command and stuff like that, which was also there. But the moment you play Centipede with a trackball, it instantly feels like it should be a trackball game. It works brilliantly with a trackball, and it was great fun to play it. I'm still not very good at it. You know, I can do a few clears and stuff, but not anything significant as far as high scores. I mean, some of the high scores on that machine are ridiculous. But yeah, really cool to play Centipede as it was intended to be played on the original cab. So that was really nice. Operation Wolf was there with the machine gun. You know, that those things where you just like, yeah, the machine gun sort of has that force feedback as you're shooting is really, really cool. You had Outrun and Super Hang On. Obviously, these are stand-up versions of the cabs, but of course you still got the steering wheel and the motorbike sort of handlebars. And again, feels really good. We had a great laugh with a bunch of us on track and field. So that was Alex actually was there again, like I said, and he's a bit of a master at track and field. He's got this kind of finger technique with the buttons where he just hits all the buttons with all of his fingers in a really fast motion. There's me doing this, he's doing this. There you go. That's the movement, everybody, right? Not this. It's not this. It's a bit of this, all right? So he was absolutely smashing myself, Ginger Hippie Gaming, Sai, Paul Retro Bait, and me, obviously. He just destroyed us. I was the first to be knocked out. I couldn't get this working. I was still this. I couldn't do this. But yeah, great fun playing that. Coming around Star Wars, the stand-up cab for Star Wars. Of course, that's just a cracking game. I mean, if you watch my last live stream, I played it on the Commodore 64. So playing it on the stand-up cab is obviously better, and it is still a great arcade. They had a 4-player gauntlet there. They had a Time Pilot. So Time Pilot I really like, and I actually set the high score for that day, as I said earlier. Coming round the corner. And of course, that's where Sky Skipper is. So Sky Skipper, I believe, the only one in the world as a full Sky Skipper cab. I may get this wrong, but it was. I actually really enjoyed it. It needed someone like Alex to explain what you did in the game, where you have to bomb the gorilla, and when he's collapsed, he's kind of like the prisoners that he has can pop out, and you have to go around and collect them with your plane, and then rinse and repeat in the different areas. And there's like normally kind of you have to think about it as kind of the area split into 3 sections, and there's people to be rescued in each section. Yeah, I genuinely enjoyed, and I actually set the high score on that for the day. There's nowhere near the actual high score, but when I left, my high score was still the number 1 high score for the day of like 25,000 or something. So that was really cool. I really enjoyed that one. I think a few people that have played it haven't really gotten into it or don't really like it, but once I kind of learned what you needed to do, I think that's a game I could really sort of play a lot. So yeah, Sky Skipper was fantastic. Making your way round, Lunar Lander was there, and that had a really cool feel to it, right? As you Lunar Lander, I think you could play a couple of different games on it, but we were playing Lunar Lander on there, and it's that kind of vector graphics, line graphics, whatever you call it. But the thrust on the cab actually had like almost like a rumble to it. So as you were, really sort of being quite gentle with the thrust and trying to correct your angle so you can land, you've got to land very accurately. You've got to be bang on and at a very slow speed, otherwise you get a bad landing. Still not a game that I've mastered, but the cab felt really cool. Just I love the way that they've presented the screen, because it's like a projected screen with like cardboard cutouts inside to give it like that real 3D depth. And it just really cool. Just a really cool cab. And then there was some jammer cabs with a whole bunch of stuff in. By the way, I'm missing out loads of cabs. There's loads of cabs in there. So if I only talk about a few, that isn't because there's only a few in there. There is lots. But again, I'm just talking about the ones that for me like jumped out at me. So yeah, loads of jammer cabs, so you could play loads of sort of more modern games on there. So it's more like the Neo Geo type era on those. Coming down the sort of left hand side there, of course, when you get to the bottom, there is Sheriff, and Sheriff is, again, the 2 standout games for me were Sky Skipper and Sheriff. Sheriff was really cool again because it had such an unique control style to it, that it just worked so well. Like it has, I know people call it the cooker knob. I mean, it is a gas cooker knob. You've got a joystick, you've got an 8-way directional joystick, and then you've got this gas knob to adjust where your gun's pointing. So you can do a full 360 rotation, and you use the gas knob to sort of go, I think it must be 45-degree angles. Yeah, so each click is a 45-degree, and you rotate that round to shoot in the different directions. But to actually shoot, you then have to push the cooker knob down, so you actually plunge it to shoot. And it might sound weird as I'm describing it, but when you're playing it, it works really well. In fact, my son, James, he set the high score on that for everybody to that on the day. Like, I know it's not the full high score that's ever been set on the machine, but for the day he set the high score, and he loved it. He played it several times. In fact, I mean, I played it several times. I don't know why I wasn't as good as him, but you know, we'll move on. But yeah, Sheriff was fantastic, really cool to play. GB was, I think, I don't know if I can't remember what Alex said now, but it's a very early game, and it's a digital pinball game. I don't know if he said it was Namco's first game. I'm sorry if I've got that wrong. But it was one of the publishers' kind of first games, or creators' first games, and it was a really cool. Imagine, it was basically Pong pinball. That's what I was gonna say. Pong pinball. So you're using two paddles. One's in the top area of the pinball table. One's in the lower area of the pinball table. And then there's blocks. So across between Pong, pinball, and breakout is kind of where I would say that game is, and it really is good. It really is. So I played that a number of times just because I really enjoyed it. There was a couple of games that weren't working. Only two games that I think weren't working. One was the submarine game. I wanted to have a crack at that because I enjoy arcade games where it's not your standard control system, where it's not just a joystick and a couple of fire buttons. I like to do something a little bit different with them. You know, even trackball for me is a little bit different. You don't often get to use trackballs anymore. So yeah, that where there's, you know, there was a scope that would have been quite cool to play. And there was a harpoon game as well, which wasn't working. But you know, that's going to happen. That's the point about the arcade, is that Alex is in constant flux of fixing, repairing, replacing, bringing in new machines. You know, that's why these places have things like Patreons and that, or they charge for people to go in, because it costs a lot of money to run these places. I mean, the electricity bill alone must be significant. So yeah, more power to these people for getting all the help they can to keep these things alive. And we should support. We 100% should support in any way we can, either going there and paying the ticket price, or being on the Patreon, or whatever we can do, donating if we can, because if we don't, these things disappear and it would be a sadder place for it. You know, I want to be in a world where people get to follow their dreams and try and create awesome places, but unless we help, they ain't going to happen. So that's just a reality. But again, in the breakout area, I call it the studio area, you know, drinks available. You know, you can just chill out there. There's a little cocktail table, I think they're called, at arcades, so you can sit down and play on some of those. Above every single arcade machine was a little plaque lit up. So they were really cool, actually, like a little 3D printed stand, backlit, with a little plaque in it, telling you about the age of the game, you know, who created it, where you know, the bit of a story behind it all. So that was really interesting to go around and read those. Just I can't go on about it much more. It's just such a great place to go. I'd highly recommend it. The vibe of it is so cool. Yeah, just superb. And again, all free play. Obviously, you've paid your ticket price. Go in. There's normally a button on the front to add credits to the machine. It's the dream we all had when we were kids, right? I don't know if you ever remember that. There used to be occasionally, if they were testing a cab in an arcade, sometimes they'd leave credits on there, wouldn't they? And you'd walk around and go, "Oh, that one's got credits," and you quickly go over and try and get to the arcade first before anyone else got to that cab to use the leftover credits from the guy who just done a bit of maintenance work on it or something. Or they'd have the little key they could go in and like turn, and it would add credits to the machine. I remember a few times getting lucky with someone just adding some credits to an arcade when you were just watching and things like that. So yeah, it was really nice to have. Hey, just keep pressing the button. You've got more credits. Keep playing. So that was the Arcade Archive. And again, Alex, mate, you've done an amazing job at it, and I hope everyone supports you in making it as successful as the Cave. Obviously, the Cave's been around a lot longer than the Arcade. The Arcade is, I think it's not long. It's not more than, I think it's less than a year old at this point. So yeah, I really hope it continues to flourish and do really well. So yeah, of course, I've got to talk about the people I met whilst I was there. So I don't often get to see friends in this community, but a few of them had managed to make it. So Sai, Ginger Hippie Gaming, I'll slip his channel below. Of course, this guy is someone who loves all things weird and wonderful about retro video gaming and retro video computing. So he was in his element, you know, walking around seeing this stuff. He brought me a whole bunch of games from this kind of shed building lockup that he's been sorting out, and I've been getting some bits and pieces of him, so I'll show those on a later video. But it was really great to see Sai, and obviously you know, speak with him again and just chat about things, so that was really nice. Paul Retrobait, he flew down from Inverness, I believe, so flew into Bristol, then came over. Again, a huge lover of, well, everything retro, but very much, you know, the Commodore, the Spectrum, those systems. So again, it was great to have time with him talking about these things, and also playing games. You know, we played games together. It was just a really good time. Of course, Alex, you know, he's a good friend. It's the first time I've met him in person. We've spoken many times on chat and stuff, but it was great to see him. And even after the event, we went back to his house, so I got a little sneak into what was the old Nintendo arcade. Of course, that was Alex's original channel on YouTube, and the vibe of the arcade is definitely inspired by the vibe that is in his version of the Hobby Lodge, right? His shed in the back garden, filled with, again, some arcade systems, and just the lighting. I mean, you've seen his videos. You know, I'll stick his channel below, but you definitely know who Alex is. And when he does filming from his shed, it is, again, a very, very cool space. Alex is a cool guy. You get that vibe from him straight away, that, you know, he's been places, he's done stuff, and he's a very cool individual. And the shed is sort of an extension of him. So it's really cool to be in there. And he even gave me a gift. I took him a copy of Blood Bowl that I'd painted. It's a late, I think it's like the early 90s version. It's a version that he played when he was younger, and I had a copy of it that I'd painted up, so I took it down to him, and he also gave me a gift, which I shall definitely show on some pickups at some point. But yeah, and of course I got to see Retro Skelly. So again, I'll put his channel below as well. Retro Skelly is the receiver of the retro play it forward box. If you've not seen that, I'll stick a thing up here, about here now. So you can go and watch that. So I got to give him the play it forward box. He seemed really happy with it. He's very deserving of it. Great to meet Matt. I've spoken to him many times, and it was nice to finally see him and have a just even a 10-minute conversation with him. But now you want to know, what did you buy? What did you pick up? What did the merch shops have available? Well, I'll go through some little bits. First up, I always have to pick these up. This will go up on the wall, much like my Retro Realm one. This is the RMC The Cave little tote bag. Like, and the one thing I will say is everything there was, I won't say it's cheap, but very reasonable. You normally this stuff costs, you know, people like to charge a good amount of money for their sort of merch and things like that, because obviously it's one of the ways that they obviously make money. But this was like, I think like £2 or something. It was super cheap. The next up I got was a t-shirt. Of course you're going to get the t-shirts. So the first one I got was the RMC The Caves t-shirt, which is like a proper, you know, this has got embroidered logos on it and everything. It's really nice t-shirt here, with obviously, yeah, like I say, the logos, or the patches, I guess, but they are done really well. It's got a vintage hardware technician, so I will wear this when I'm repairing my various bits and pieces. But yeah, Cave Dweller, yeah, really nice proper polo shirt. Like it a lot. And of course I had to get the other one, which was from the Arcade Archive. There we go, nice t-shirt from there. There you go, there you go. Classic Coin Op Museum, with his new logo and everything on it. So that was really cool. Really nice quality, thick t-shirt, really nice. It is your classic Fruit of the Loom, but it actually feels really good quality, feels nice. We also got, of course, the mug. Let me get the mug. didn't pick up the mug from Alex. Alex, I need to get a mug. I meant to buy the Arcade Archive mug, but I apologise, I didn't get it. But I will get one. So here we go. I'm an official. I guess I need to be on the Patreon, I think, to be an official cave dweller. I am on the Arcade Archives Patreon. So maybe I should practice what I preach and jump on this one as well. And I shall do that, because, like I said, the cave was awesome. I didn't stop smiling. I mean, the arcade is freaking awesome. The cave is also very awesome. I didn't stop smiling the whole time around there. So I think it's deserved my patronage, if that's the right word. But yeah, we've got the official cave dweller mug. And then just like random, because I had a long drive back, the cave also sold music CDs, from people that have maybe done like Sid Chip music or other types of 8-bit music and stuff. So I just picked up one. And it's called Back in Time 3, and this one is signed by the artist Chris Abbott. So yeah, I picked this up for the drive home. We listened to it. We had to listen to it twice. It was quite a long drive home, but I think there's like 17 tracks on here or something. That's quite nice to have a bit of chiptune type music whilst we were driving home. So yeah, that was pretty much it. I mean, there was other bits and pieces to buy there. There was the mouse mat. There was the colouring in book. There was you could buy little 3D printed TV modules for the back of your Amiga 500. So if you've got one of the 500 minis, instead of using like a standard little nub, I buy these little nub ones because they're so small, they don't stick out the back of the Amiga or any other device you've got. But they had the TV modulator that was 3D printed as a USB stick, so you could have that sticking out the back. Looks a bit more in keeping with the system itself. Again, not expensive. Everything in there was, I think, very reasonably priced. There was all sorts of knickknacks in there that you could have bought, but we just went with the classics. So that's what that is. And yeah, that was it from the cave and the archive. So look, this video is probably super long at this point. I hope, by the way I've talked about it, you get the vibe that it was a really worthwhile trip, and it was. I'm not gonna beat around the bush about it. It was, whilst it was a significant journey, a 5-hour round trip in a day. I got home last night very late. I was very tired by the time I got back, but the kids had a fantastic day. They said several times they really enjoyed it. I super enjoyed it. It's great meeting friends as always, and it's great to go to these places that still exist today in 2023, and I hope they continue to exist long into our futures. But yeah, that's all I can really say. I hope you get the chance to go. If you've been done it, let me know below what your thoughts are. If you're going, let me know below. But let's keep supporting these places in any way we can. I do mean that. If that is going and paying the ticket price, if it means jumping on their Patreon, if it means donating equipment or PCBs or whatever it means we can do to help these guys out, parts for arcade machines, parts for systems. If you can find a way, you're in this retro community, if you can find a way to support these guys, please do, because we want these places to live on forever. Right, thanks so much everybody, and I'll speak to you soon. Okay, bye bye.